Good morning, everyone. I was told a wonderful story a few years ago as I was driving, ironically, driving to the airport on a business trip. And it was my driver that was arranged by the company I worked for at the time, was the man who told me this story. You'll know why I say ironically as I tell the story. It was about a professor who would go around traveling the country, delivering these wonderful speeches, who had the same driver that would take him with him everywhere he went. So we had the expert and the driver in the story. And like I said, ironically, because this is a driver telling me the story as we go. But one day, as this professor was heading to another university to deliver another presentation, the driver, his chauffeur, expressed some frustration. And he said, "If you don't mind me sharing, Professor," he said, "I've heard you deliver these presentations so many times. I think that I could do just as good a job as you. In fact, I even think today I could probably do it a little bit better. I've heard it that many times," right? And he said, "Today, can we do something different? You've never been to this university before. They don't know what you look like. Can we swap out what we're wearing? I'm tired of wearing the chauffeur's hat. Can we swap out our clothes and you put on the chauffeur's hat today, you sit at the back of the room, and just for a change, can I deliver the presentation? Can I be the speech giver and see what happens?" Well, you can imagine what the professor thought. He thought to himself, "Oh, that's a big risk, isn't it? But maybe, being that researcher type, maybe there could be something interesting in this." So he was willing to go along with it. And so he said, "Okay, let's swap clothes." They pulled over, they swapped out their clothes. They arrived at the university, and the chauffeur in the professor's outfit went and sat on the stage and then got up to deliver a speech. He did fantastically. In fact, he did so well, he got a standing ovation from the roaring crowd in the auditorium. And he's feeling very chuffed with himself. And as he goes to walk off the stage, the president of the university stops him. And he goes, "Oh, please, my beloved colleague, we've still got a few minutes left. You finished just a couple of minutes early. Perhaps we can have a few questions and answers from the audience." I don't know what you'd think in that moment, but all of a sudden things have changed. He goes back to the stand. And there is an enthusiastic academic at the front of the room with his hand raised. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, sir, I have a question." And he goes, "Yes." He points to him. And he said, "Just based on what you were talking about today," they were talking about deep sea drilling and all sorts of complicated, wonderful things there. And he said, "If we were to drill 1.5 miles deep at a 20-degree angle, into the Earth's surface and inadvertently get through the fossil remains of a dinosaur from the Jurassic period using a triple-tipped diamond drill bit, what would be the acidic nature of the soil when it came back to the surface after such an experience as that?" And he thought for a moment and he goes, "My dear friend, in all the years that I've been giving these presentations, never have I been confronted with such a simple question as that." He said, "In fact, I think it's so easy, even my chauffeur at the back of the room could answer it." And he passed it off to his chauffeur. What a wonderfully clever response. Now, like I said, ironically, I was told this story en route to the airport by my driver as I was heading to a business meeting. I wondered what he was trying to tell me. We were good friends, so I knew there was nothing in it. But he said at the time we were going through somewhat of a corporate crisis when we were on that road trip together. And he knew all about the crisis because he would drive around lots of other executives at the same time to their relevant meetings. And he knew what was going on. He said, "Look, for what it's worth," there was great wisdom that came from this chauffeur, by the way. He said, "It's one thing to be able to deliver the presentation." He said, "But it's a whole different thing to be able to say, now, do you have any questions? That's another level, isn't it? Now, do you have any questions? He said, that's where you want to get to. That's where it's really at. So I want to talk a little bit today about the difference between real knowledge and chauffeur knowledge. Chauffeur knowledge being the metaphorical knowledge that we just talked about that maybe looks good, sounds good, but lacks depth, lacks substance. It hasn't been earned, because real knowledge can't be copied, can it? It can't be bought, it can't be purchased. You can memorize a little bit of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you know it. Real knowledge comes through doing, through being engaged, through activity. It comes through sacrifice, through a little bit of suffering, a little bit of lessons learned the hard ways. And wonderfully, there is a long list of very smart people that have got a pedigree of success earned through making lots of bad decisions. Yeah, because that's how we learn. That's how we acquire real knowledge. Yeah, by making some bad choices, learning, and then keeping at it and moving forward. I want you to think about for a minute, what are some bad choices that you've made that have actually led to better choices down the road? Can you see sometimes there is a connection? There is, isn't there? Now, I want to talk, like I said, I want to talk again a little bit about knowledge being something that we have a hands-on opportunity to engage with here, because in Nikan, the key way to learn is to do. I was on a great call last night. Mike, if you're able to unmute your line, you might have the chance to, you might remember this a little bit better than I. But I was on Mike's call last night, and we had Richard Brook, industry legend, on the call with us last night. And one of the points that he made was, in order to really succeed, it's not about being a master of many great things. It's actually all about doing the right things consistently. But he really, to me, made a big impact when he talked about consistency in relation to the compound effect. We've all heard about the value of that magic penny when it is compounded, doubled over time, every day for a month. The net value of that penny over a month, when it is doubled every day for 30 days, is over $5 million. Yeah, a huge number. But if you compound it every other day, meaning you're not as consistent, its value came to about 169 bucks. Wasn't that interesting? Its value came to about $169. So, Mike, what struck you last night? Someone's put in the specifics there. 169. Mm-hmm. What was the big? Did you have a big aha moment last night listening to Richard?
Yeah, I do. Apologize for not being on camera. My hot water is not working because I have a leak that has to be repaired shortly.
No worries. I'm grateful.
The key, I think the real message you've hit on, it was the lack. In fact, he talked about, look at your compensation plan, look at your income disclosure sheet, and you'll see that the big money is earned. Well, there's two things that really came to mind, but the big money is earned by a very small percentage of the people, not because it's not available to be earned by all, but because that very, very small percentage of the people are willing to do and actually do the consistency. In other words, he just took it as a simple idea, one person a day. And he's hosting this mentoring call coming up next week for 60 days, because he knows the percentage of people, even at the highest levels of a company currently, the percentage of those people who actually consistently contact one person a day is so small, like 1 in 1,000 even, that you wonder then why the numbers are skewed the way they are. Well, they're just simply a matter of the numbers. That's one thing. And he pretty much promises that if you do the numbers consistently, you will get the results. One, The second thing he talked about, specific to Niken, was that Niken was a company where you could trust that if you did the work, that the company will be there to pay you forever. That was an important statement, because he said, even in our industry of thousands of companies worldwide, with about 700 in North America alone, Niken is in the 10 that he could count on his hands that really have what it takes for fulfilling a promise of being there to reward somebody who does do the work, puts in the effort. So I think that was really important. And the last thing that I think we all know this, but he talked about the customer being the dead end. Now, he didn't mean that customers are not a good thing. That's how we get paid. He emphasized that. What he means is your growth, your ability to actually experience that exponential growth is predicated on your ability to have a system that's duplicatable, that people are able to do something with some degree of consistency so that you get growth. And that something is introducing people to your story. And what was also, I love, was the simplicity of how he describes that. He said, look, if you had a friend that you'd known a long time, there's somebody you know, and they came to you and they wanted to tell you about Niken, what you know about Niken as a person right now, and your friend came to you, what would you want them to say to you to tell you about Niken? Would you want them to do a song and dance routine, or would you just want them to be straight up with you? Honest and simple, to the point, direct. And the answer is, of course, we just want them to tell us. So that should take a lot of the relief away from, what should I say? What do I say? As if we need a script for every human being. It's just keep it simple, tell your story, and tell it to a lot of people with some consistency.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much. So critical thing there, the key skill that we want to become masters of is our ability to tell our own story. And it's our own story. Yeah, that's important. And we need to be able to do it in today's day and age concisely. But as we've been learning, listening to John Livesay, who's been with us on a number of our calls recently, that we need to have that in an emotional way, in a way that resonates with others, in a way that meets their needs. And we need to be able to listen, understand, and connect, build those connections with people. But critically, tell our story, but do it on a daily basis. I think those two things are really essential. Madeline, I can see you got your hand up. Your thoughts, please.
And what I really came away with was then he put what Mike just talked about in that funnel. So in the bottom part of the funnel were the people that you had the relationships with. Yeah. And so that's where you were more. And so then in the bigger part of the funnel is all those people every day, rather than the every other day. I'll tell you, I have a big and large from a big old flip chart of that penny doubled. And I always had that paper out. I was absolutely shocked at the every other day difference of 168 point whatever cents it was compared to the millions. And so that, to me, that visual of putting all those contacts in that funnel, and then as you develop the relationships or they contact you, so that puts that in to perspective, that differentiating the influencers, who's interested, enough people in that funnel. So then they move down into the lower part of the funnel where you have the relationship. And I think that to me, Barb and I talked about it afterwards, because our contacting is always personal rather than the online, that relationshiping piece, age and friends, I guess. But that was addressed also in your question and Sophia's question about the online. Not that there is anything wrong with it, because it becomes the leverage, but it becomes the leverage globally when there's a few key people with the relationships that had a few other key people, and that was what he really connected for me in network marketing. The one or two strong legs are going to take those influential people that then can have the large networks globally that then can connect online globally. It was just a wonderful putting a few of those puzzle pieces together with what I came away with. And of course, the 90-second story. And also, it wasn't just our telling our short story, but instead of worrying about those scripts, just asking them their story, asking, and not just the standard form, but the real interest in them what's going on in their life, so that they would really share what is going on, not
Yeah.
work, you know, firing the questions, which I can do. So
Yeah.
it was just wonderful in his style, and the way that he handled your question, Ben, and Sophia's. It was very just wonderful. And I think the timing with John Livesay and the practicing that we've been doing with storytelling was just a perfect timing. It's one worth, it was a little longer, but Mike already sent it out. It's worth for everybody to watch and listen to more than once.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you. Yeah. So I think that was really important what he stressed. The question that I asked for those that weren't on last night's call was, with the advancement of technology being what it is, with social media changing, new platforms coming on all the time that are the new trends and so on, and entrepreneurship evolving at a rapid pace, what does that make the future of network marketing look like? What is its place in the entrepreneurial world? And it was great. I loved his answer. It was in line with what my own thoughts were. But what he essentially said was the number one still remains the number one method of product sale. The number one way of getting that really where it matters most is word of mouth advertising. Yeah, word of mouth is still the number one method that is applied. He said, and in regards to technology, he said no matter how big they are, there are platforms that will change, that will become a thing of the past. MySpace was a place where everyone went. Periscope was a place where everyone went, and they are no longer. We have Facebook, but we also see that a lot of people drop off Facebook, and now that's becoming an aging demographic. I find that a lot of my kids don't really use Facebook now. They're moving to Instagram. My younger ones are on TikTok. And I don't even sometimes know how all of that stuff works. I was reassured when Richard said that he has Instagram but doesn't know how to use it. Yeah. What I'm finding is, Ruth's saying Clubhouse is hot right now. Yeah. But what I'm finding is we've got to find where, as we tell our story, right? This is the critical thing. We want to tell our story. We want to tell it well every day. And we want to listen to people, yeah, and hear their stories. That's the critical thing. It's not just about telling our story. We want to hear as many people's stories a day as we can. Because one thing that we know is people love to talk about themselves. So as we ask them questions about themselves, let them tell their story, they'll come away going, that person's really lovely. We had a great conversation. And what you'll find is you did a little talking, they did all the talking, and it was all about them, but they'll have loved it. And that's great. That's what you want. And you can learn and you can ask all the questions, get all the information that you need to understand where they're at so that you can see how to serve them best. There is a phrase that I often use: he who talks first loses. Yeah, that's the fundamental rule of negotiation. It's also, in my experience, the fundamental rule of conflict management or conflict resolution. Yeah, he who talks first loses. If you want to really get to a win state, let the other person do all the talking first. It's a fundamental rule. So we start with that, ask the questions, listen, hear their story, and then have the chance to respond. We can then customize our own story so that there are some common links and common bonds and connections where they go, oh, we share some similar values, some similar elements of our story, and we have some common ground. And that common ground everyone loves, isn't it? That's what we all want to have, in that sense of community and belonging, that sense of common ground. Yeah, we've got something in common here that makes us the same. We all want to be different in some way, but at the heart of it, we also all want to be the same in some way. Yeah, so that's really important that we listen, we then respond, and then we customize so that we can do it in a way that we have built on common beliefs and our stories have some common threads, and we bind them together. That's the bit that makes it really lovely, where you've got their story and your story are not two separate things, but we've managed to weave them together a little bit. And we've got something there of a common thread that keeps us connected. And then from there, I think we start to have something quite different. And to Richard's point yesterday, we do it on a daily basis. We reach out and connect. The question then is two things that I wanted to emphasize from here. How do I do that? And where do I do that? Okay, or where do I get to do that in regards to where and who, where do I do it and who do I do it with? Because if I'm doing it every day, then that means I've got to have a lot of people that I'm talking to. Well, he talked about in using social media, for example. He said one of the great challenges of using social media, we've learned, for example, that when we're using Facebook, we know how to like, comment, and share. We've all been taught that. When someone posts something, we want it to go viral, or we want it to stay up there getting traction, that we like, comment, share. But one of the challenges that many people face is when they've gone through all of this work to create their own brand, design their own artwork, post it up on a consistent basis, and try to do that as a social media expert. One of the challenges they find is monetizing that. How do they change that behavior into something that converts into into a purchasing customer? Yeah, so that I've got these Facebook posts or Instagram posts that I'm going up on a scheduled basis. I've done my research and I know that most of the people on in my following go online at this time of the day and at this time of the day. So I'm posting at those times. I've got it scheduled and sequenced. I'm doing it on a regular basis. I've got my theme and my message, and I'm trying to be consistent. I've identified my brand. I've done all of my homework marketing wise, and I'm doing it. But what happens for most people? It doesn't monetize. So what do we do with that? One of the ways that we can get through that challenge, get through that roadblock, is by joining the groups and starting the conversations. Why? Because it goes back to that first point, that word of mouth advertising is one of the best ways to get the sale. Okay, so we can connect with lots of audiences, but if we can connect with people where we've got the common beliefs already in place, the common values that are already there, there are social media groups aplenty in abundance where they are already connected, they're already in their hundreds or maybe even in their thousands, where people talk about a common subject. And you can jump in and you can connect with people and you can have individual conversations. You can share a post or comment on a post. And when people start to see your engagement and participation, then you can start to respond to them on a one-to-one basis. So you treat that like a funnel process. You jump onto the group, they post, you comment, someone else comments, you respond, and then you take it from there offline into a private message. And then all of a sudden you're having private dialogues. And then you're having a different experience. Then you start to build the common beliefs. Then you start to share your story. And that's where the story sharing really comes in. If you're thinking that in that big space, I can try to get my story out there and get the big response and turn it into a sale really quickly, it doesn't happen. You've got to convert that conversation, transition that conversation to a different platform. Take it away. Madeline, you got a question? Oh, you haven't, that's up from before. Yeah. Okay, so there's a critical way to do it. Another thing that I've mentioned previously is finding where you're most comfortable in sharing your voice. What is the best platform for you? Like I said, I was a bit like Richard last night when he said, I've got Instagram, I don't really know how to use it. I've got Instagram and I don't really know how to use it. My kids make it look wonderfully intuitive. Oh, it's really easy, Dad, you just do this. And they just get, and I'm like, I don't know what you did then. Can you do it again? And they mock me, and I've become what I vowed as a child I wouldn't be. When I was playing on my little game station as a kid, I'm going to be one of those cool parents that knows how to play these things with his children, and he's going to do good. And now technology has gone beyond me too quickly at a very rapid pace, and I can't keep up. But what I do know is I do know how to use LinkedIn. I do know how to work in that space very well. That space works really good for me. So I utilize that space really good. And I get regular contacts from there reaching out to me on a regular basis. So I get inbound leads coming from there on a regular basis, which I'm really grateful for. And like I said, I think it was last week, podcast interviews also work very well for me. So I've created a platform for me, the foundation of which was laid last year, but I use that as leverage now for this year, where I can use that to acquire a new audience and get my voice out. But that works for me. So we've got to find ways where we go, where can I use my voice? Madeline said that her and Barb Satterwhite, for example, are most comfortable using the traditional method of relationshiping, friendshipping, and social media isn't typically their space. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. Ruth Lowe was saying, I only use Facebook, and that works for me. Yeah, and that's great. So there are lots of different ways, but we don't need to be masters of all of them. We just need to find the way that works best for us and then use it well. And critically, use it consistently. So my invitation today is to learn, where do I have real knowledge versus chauffeur knowledge? Yeah. Where do I really have the well-earned knowledge? Where do I know that I've earned my stripes, so to speak? I just want to emphasize as well, another key way that is really, really important, that works excellently for me. And I've just had a note pop into my feed here, again, saying the same thing. And this is one of my favorite methods of making connections. And this is how I failed to touch on this point. So I'll get to this. I need to digress just a second because this is essential. How do we keep on talking to people all the time? If we're going to do this consistently, yeah, how does that work? Because sometimes we think we're going to people out at some point. The way we do this, and this is fundamental, is asking for referrals. Who do you know? Thank you for talking with me today. I appreciate, even if they were not interested, I appreciate that maybe now is not the right time for you to, you connect with any of our products. You're not interested in being a customer right now, but as you listen to what we've talked about today, is there anyone that you can think of where you feel that they would be interested in looking after their health a little better? Would you mind putting them in contact with me or helping me get in contact with them? Yeah. Ask for referrals, ask for referrals, ask for referrals. This opportunity may not be right for you at this present moment. You've got a lot on your plate. I understand that. Thank you for your honesty. Is there anyone that you know that may be looking for something right now? The world is in commotion. Has anyone that you know found that they've been reeling the past few months or year or so, is looking for some answers? I'd love to talk to them. Anything that I can do to help someone that's in your network, how can I be of service to them? Yeah, but ask those questions and keep asking. And then when you go to that person, do the same thing again. Don't just do it one level deep. You keep on asking. With everyone you go to, you ask for a referral. Every person you speak to can be a source of referrals, but only if you ask. Yeah, so referrals are a source of referrals, and their referrals are a source of referrals. Keep asking the questions. And that's how you keep being consistent day after day after day. Okay, so there is the approach. So my conclusion, jumping back in now to my final point, understand what is my chauffeur knowledge versus my real knowledge. And how do I differentiate? By being willing to say, I don't know the answer to that question. In this environment, it's okay to say, I don't know. In the chauffeur's world, they make excuses, don't they? They pretend that they have all the answers. Here, we're proud of the fact, if someone asks a question and we don't have the answer, we can be proud of the fact that we don't know. Why? Because we're a community. So Tuha, who has joined us today as the newest member of our community, asks me a question and I go, oh, that's a great question. I don't have the answer for that. But I know someone that does, because look, we've got all these people on our call today. I reckon Mike might have the answer for that, or maybe Ruth, or maybe Leah might have the answer. Now, let me reach out to them and see what they say, and I'll get back to you. Yeah, it's a privilege sometimes to not have that answer, because we engage other people in the community to participate, and we feel a greater sense of belonging and teamwork as a result. So the key is, whether you know or not, open your mouth. Listen, share, engage, build on common beliefs, share our stories, connect with people, but critically do it consistently. And as we do it consistently, we'll get better and better, and the power of that compounding will multiply in a way that we couldn't imagine. It blew my mind. That was my aha moment for last night, that if we did it compounded every other day, $169 was what I got versus a few million. What a difference. Yeah. So the power of this is all in consistency. Do it consistently. Even if you're scared, even if you're nervous, do it anyway. Swallow the frog, do it the first thing in the morning, get it out of the way, get it done so you don't have to stress about it for the rest of the day. Make it the first thing that you do in the morning to get it over and done with if it scares you. Yeah, but get it done. And then over time, it'll get easier and easier and easier. So thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.